For centuries, Alderaan stood as a beacon of hope in the Republic. The Empire came.
I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan.
Peace while you suffer. The Emperor drowns you in black waters.
He wants me to be Darth Revan again. Serve him as I did centuries ago. He made me a Sith Lord and named me Darth Revan.
The Force does not control you. You saved Ugandan using something you thought was important. But your motives are still aligned with the Jedi Code.
To arms, men! Defend the throne!
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him. He was weak and foolish like his father. So I destroyed him.
Master Windu, you have fought gallantly. Worthy of recognition in the archives of the Jedi. It is finished.
To them it is.
I have been waiting for you. Is it true that he is the chosen one?
Hey guys, and welcome back to State of the Galaxy. I'm Alex,
I'm Robert.
and today we are going to be talking about, first of all, droids. For whatever reason, I hedged, and I was like, wait, is State of the Galaxy our series? Yes, it is. I get confused with our Light of the Saber Facebook page. But, so, in terms of droids, first of all, what droid would you like to have, personally, as like a domestic friend?
I mean, obviously, we see a lot of the R2 unit doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Especially in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. But I feel like Protocol Droid
Yeah?
may get on my nerves.
Yeah. Excuse me, sir. Is there anything I could do?
Especially if they have a personality program like 3PO.
Yeah.
Which might be grating after a while.
I'd imagine it probably would.
But an R2 unit, I feel like he'll get on, do what you ask him to.
Yeah.
Offer suggestions maybe, but not in a 3PO way.
No. Because you see, I don't know if you know much about the R2 and R3 story in the Clone Wars.
No.
Do you mind spoilers?
Is it early or late in the series?
It's very early in the series.
Oh, go on.
It's like the first couple of episodes. Long and the short of it is, R2's out on a mission with Anakin. Anakin's ship gets hit. Anakin gets brought back, but they're like, oh, R2 got destroyed. But it turns out that R2's being salvaged, and in R2's absence, Anakin gets assigned with a new R3 unit. And R3, he just doesn't get along with Anakin, but you can see like all the improvements that R3 has over R2, and then R3 and R2 have a kind of showdown thing. Which I was really hoping we weren't going to get in Star Wars Episode 8 when they introduced BB-9E.
Yeah.
I thought that was what we were going to get, as another droid showdown between him and BB-8, but fortunately we didn't get that. But yeah, so you said, would it be an R2 unit you think you'd go for?
I mean, outside of R2 and the R5 that blows its motivator,
Yeah.
A New Hope, I've not seen much of the other series, so I'm not sure of their capabilities.
No, fair enough. I think for me personally, it would probably be either the R6 or probably the R4, just because of the assassin droid that you see in the Marvel Vader comics. It has a greater amount of space that you can hide things in. I mean, I know R2, you can hide a saber inside of his dome.
Yeah.
But imagine the kind of arsenal that you could hide inside an R4 unit. You could hide at least 2 good blasters in there. Because they are essentially just bins.
Oh, wow.
you could hide a fair amount in there, depending on how you wired it all up. So yeah, I think that'd be the one that I'd go for. But R2 for you?
Yeah, it's got to be. because they're like customizable as well. So if you want him to, I don't know, do something really specific, like say you're painting a wall. I don't know how they decorate in the Star Wars universe. I'm guessing someone has to paint walls at some point.
Maybe. Yeah.
And I'm guessing you can put a paintbrush attachment on an R2 droid.
Imagine that going from co-piloting a Jedi Starfighter to painting a wall.
Well, not specifically R2D2. I'm saying I'd get an R2 series.
Yeah, and no, fair enough.
But like, I'm sure he'd be up for it.
Yeah,
he'd be like, paint my wall, mate. We'll go joyriding in my speeder later. It'll be fine.
No, fair enough. The different tools that you see with R2, which you more see when he's either malfunctioning or just losing his mind.
Yeah. Like
in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin orders him to do that kind of just deployment of everything.
Yeah.
To distract Grievous.
Or when he gets shot in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't get shot, but the
wall
panel
does.
that he's interacting with does, and I guess
it blasts him backwards.
Him, yeah.
So there's quite a lot of different bits of technology. Like he even has a pizza cutter, or like a serrated pizza cutter, because he uses it to cut through. And you see that in the Clone Wars as well, and it can cut through metal.
Oh wow!
That thing is strong.
If you don't like 40,000 RPM or something.
It's made out of Mandalorian steel.
Yeah.
So something that my friend Stephen brought up was that the R5 that you see in Episode 4, he sacrifices himself in order to then show Lars that R2 is the next best choice.
Yeah.
Therefore keeping the dynamic duo together, and then they can help Luke out. But you found out something a bit more.
Yeah, I thought it was like Legends canon, but I was mistaken, because I was remembering a comic that I read at least 10 years ago, maybe something like 14.
No,
I don't know, but in Star Wars Tales, there's a short story where it turns out he's actually Force sensitive.
Yeah. So what's the name of that droid? It's Skippy the Droid, isn't it?
Yeah. But it turns out that he can sense the Force, he can use the Force, and he had a premonition of what would happen if R2 doesn't go with 3PO and doesn't meet Luke.
Yeah.
And how awful that would all turn out.
Yeah.
So, using the Force, he sacrificed himself to obviously blow his motivator.
Yeah, or do something that looked like his motivator had blown. Because that wasn't his death, was it?
Was it not?
No, because I think it is in this article here. It says that he was actually gunned down by stormtroopers.
I don't remember that bit from the comic.
I imagine that'd be really brutal. Yeah. It's just this light-hearted comic, and then
it was like light-hearted. Turns out non-canon, but still comedic comic. I don't remember him being shot down, but I might just be hiding myself from trauma.
no,
I
fair
experienced enough. As a child.
Well, it could have been in this article. It could have been in the other one that we found, because we did have a look at the Legends stuff about R5. And in that, he wasn't called Skippy, and what actually happened with his motivator then, and it seems that it was R2.
Yeah, that seemed like a very dark turn.
Yeah, for R2-D2, although saying that, we've seen him do dark stuff in the Clone Wars, but it turns out that it was him who sabotaged R5.
Yeah.
Because he, I don't know, did R2 have a Force-provoked premonition that he wasn't going to get selected primarily?
No, like,
how did that work out? Or did he go around sabotaging everyone?
Every R-series droid.
Everyone. Maybe he did do that, because, wow. Even the Gonk droid.
Yeah.
The Gonk droid must go.
Did you ever play as the Gonk droid in the original Lego Star Wars?
Yes. That
did nothing.
That sucked, though, because I think I played as the Gonk droid, and then I was playing multiplayer, and my friend was the only other playable character in a close proximity, so I had to gonk my way, but then they'd force me back. I was like, you horrible person. Now I have to gonk my way again, all the way over to another playable character. But yeah, so that's a bit more on R5, and no doubt we'll cover him later on. I want to cover the Skippy the Droid stuff in a Light of the Saber post at some point.
Yeah.
Because that would be cool. And just the droids in general are a really kind of interesting story to follow, because wasn't it justified a few months ago about C-3PO's red arm?
I don't know.
I was told by Barry before he left that it was during a mission when the droids were deployed, and this other protocol droid donated his arm to 3PO. I'm guessing 3PO lost his appendage in some kind of accident because he saw it as a logical choice.
Right.
And that's just it.
Oh,
that's it.
Fair enough.
So that's where the red arm came from. Instead of that gif of him punching Jar Jar Binks through the heart and doing like a Kali Ma rip out, which I do like that gif, but it's not canon or Legends in any kind of way. So moving on from there, there was something that I'd written up. I think we covered in the early days of this podcast series was a lineup of all the films that I would like to see after this trilogy's ended with Episode 9. And the Star Wars stories have come to a close, what I've predicted. Have you noticed the pattern that has appeared with these Star Wars story films?
What do you mean, pattern?
Like the time and when they're set.
Well, currently they've only been in the Empire era.
And to bring that, to wilt that down even more, they've only been between episodes 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So you've got Rogue One, which was Han Solo, which presumably will be, and Kenobi as well.
Are we confirmed with Kenobi film?
I think so, yes.
Oh.
So that'll presumably... We're hoping that it will be during his time on Tatooine. It would make
sense.
It would, yeah, because of all the stuff with the Clone Wars, we don't need any more of that. And unless you're going to do...
You'd have to, like, really recast to do before Episode 1.
Unless you were going to do a Qui-Gon film.
Yeah, possibly.
It wouldn't make much sense to do that. But what I've done is I've now backtracked from the very beginning. I've even put in text from the beginning. So before Episode 1, I would love to see, just because I'm a sucker for... Oh, no, wait. I think... There we go. Not from the beginning. So we're going to start from Episode 3 to Episode 4, which, of course, we've got Rogue One, Solo, and Kenobi. Then from Episode 4 to 5, I would like to see Order 66 Part 2, which would be the struggle of the Jedi who survived Order 66, like Kanan, and all the other Jedi that survived. You could add new Jedi for new canon, and resurrect some old ones as well. I'd love to see... I keep on forgetting his name, but the blind Jedi in the Force Unleashed games.
As I mentioned last time, I
no, you haven't played them.
I'm of no help here.
No, that's all right. But and as other Robert would love to hear me say, he became a drunk.
He just wants everyone to become a drunk.
He does. But I'd like to see the kind of struggle during the Empire era from the perspective of the Jedi, and perhaps more of them getting killed off just because they're not ready to survive in that kind of life.
Yeah.
Then I'd love to see a Camino film, branching out more with the training that the clones have to go through. I mean, I know we saw a bit during the Clone Wars.
So sort of like Full Metal Jacket, but with clone troopers.
Yeah, but just not as sweary.
Yeah,
and as brutal. Although, to be fair,
but that sort of progression from cadet to soldier story.
And maybe
that's more what I was getting at.
It could round off in kind of like a Rogue One feel, where they go to the Battle of Geonosis.
Could do.
And they just all die. Because so many of them did die.
That's true, yeah.
During the Rise of the Empire campaign, you've got that one narrator that just depicts like the blood and the screaming and the dying. You don't really get to appreciate that during basic training before you get thrown into the mix. And then I'd also like to have a bounty hunter tale film. So some stuff with...
Any particular bounty hunter, or...?
I think it would be an absolute crime to not have Boba Fett appear at some point.
Yeah, if you do a bounty hunter film, he has to be in there.
Especially if it's set during that time period.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to know a bit more about... Because Greedo wasn't the only one of his race that was part of Jabba's... You saw at least 3 or 4 in
the extended...
In the extended
edition, sorry.
Yeah,
there's... When Jabba's in front of a Falcon, there's like you say, a few of them dotted around just as security guards, I guess.
I can't remember the name of the race. I think it's a Rhodian.
Yeah. That sounds right. I was going to throw it out there.
No, that's all right.
Rondian?
I think I might be right.
It's similar to that.
And then you've got Bosk as well.
Yeah.
The assassin droid.
IG-88. There's 4 LOM as well.
Oh yeah.
Or 4 LOM. I'm not sure how the pronunciation goes with that.
Dengar.
Yeah. He was in a lot of the Legends now, but a lot of the novels that were based around Boba Fett.
Oh, okay.
Dengar was definitely in at least one. I'm pretty sure he was in like a trilogy where Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit.
Oh, okay.
I remember reading one again ages ago, where he like helped him get out and like reclaim his armor or something.
Oh, okay.
So there's definitely been stories with Dengar in.
Fair play. And then moving on from episode 5. So saying we'd have the core film, so like what Rian Johnson is doing, that would be for between episodes 3 and 4 with these, between episodes 4 and 5 with these Star Wars stories, and then all the other core films would follow, but these are all just the Star Wars story ones. So between episodes 5 and 6, I would love to see The Shadow of the Empire, which was originally a book, and it's the only book to have a soundtrack. You can occasionally find it on iTunes. They keep on taking it down, and I managed to pick it up. But it's a lovely, lovely soundtrack. In fact, part of it I used for the podcast intro, and it depicts Luke immediately after his run-in with Vader on Cloud City, and the kind of tightrope he had to walk, avoiding the dark side because he just found out this massive thing, and he'd been dismembered, but was picking himself back up. But he didn't quite know what was right, what was real, whether the rebellion would even come out on top and stuff like that. And then plans to retaliate. Something that Star Wars has suffered with, and will probably continue to suffer with because no one really wants to see this, but I really do, is the consequences of big things being destroyed.
That's a thing from, I think, TV tropes. The destruction of the second Death Star would definitely affect the planet of, Forest Moon of Endor.
Oh yeah.
Because it was in such close proximity, but that couldn't blow up like that unless it's completely vaporized.
But it wasn't, because you saw stuff spinning off.
So there should have been some sort of fallout from that massive event.
Wasn't that the original canon? It was like an Ewok Holocaust.
That might have been in the comic, I'm not sure.
It must have been one brutal comic, just seeing Ewoks melt. But I also wanted to see, because from the destruction of the first Death Star, and then moving further in, you got the destruction of Starkiller Base. They don't act like it's a big loss.
Yeah.
Like, you could argue that there's some time gap between episodes 4 and 5, and that kind of loss would have been seen between that. But in between episodes 7 and 8, it's an immediate jump. There's no time. And it's like they've lost nothing. What was the point in Starkiller Base? It wasn't like the First Order got hurt by that in the slightest. And then at the end of episode 7, they're like, yeah, we've really shown it to the First Order. No, you haven't.
Yeah, because immediately in episode 8, they're in a stronger position, aren't they?
Yeah.
The First Order.
Yeah, so it's almost like they've given their game away, because they've sent out the Resistance fleet, they've destroyed Starkiller Base, or helped to, and then flown away, and they just followed them.
Yeah.
You would have done better.
Plan overall.
You would have done better off just to leave it, but whatever. Also, I'd love to see a Mara Jade film, because Mara Jade was originally the right hand of the Emperor.
Yeah. Then she eventually became Luke's wife.
Yeah. Because apparently there's
I mean, that's clearly not going to happen in new canon now.
You say that, but it's been hinted at that Luke had a wife.
Really? When?
In new canon, there was an article that was released that stated apparently he had a wife at one point. Obviously, he doesn't now.
Well, I mean, if she died in the
really
destruction of Luke's
temple,
then that would explain more why he was so distraught, I think.
Imagine if Kylo had shown some kind of darker feel towards Luke's wife, and he did it out of an act of protection towards his wife and his students, rather than just, I've sensed this.
Well,
once, so I'm gonna lash out at him.
I mean, I still think that can fit in with Luke's characterization from the original trilogy because in Return of the Jedi, when he's just wailing on Vader, he's clearly got him beat. He's knocked him to the floor, but he's still hacking at him, and eventually takes his hand off, doesn't he? So it shows that he's clearly capable of that anger and acting on that impulse. But then he pauses, collects himself, and doesn't finish Vader off.
Which is exactly the same thing.
Which is what he did with
Kylo Ren.
So for people who are like, oh, that's outside of Luke's characterization, I feel like it could be still considered within his character
because he did that.
Yeah. So it's sort of history repeats itself type thing. But this time it didn't work out as well for him.
No, and it's more justified because he has seen this evil
Yeah,
arise.
so he knows how it can go
and how many lives it can devastate. And it was. I'm not going to justify him because there's no real way to justify murder.
No.
But at the same time, it was.
You can see why he was drawn to that.
It was a lesser of two evils.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was either that or just let it happen. But as it
turns
out, it happened anyway.
And he does, in The Last Jedi, Luke does mention how Sidious sort of took things over from within. So he knows that it can and has happened.
Yeah.
So, again, not justifying it, but as a lesser of two evils, he can see that if he does that, then maybe it wouldn't happen this time. So you can see why he was drawn to it, but then he like gathered himself and thought, no, I can't do this, fitting in with what he did with Vader.
Yeah, fair play. So that was the Mara Jade idea of having that. And then between episodes 6 and 7, we've got the Journey to the Force Awakens, which we did have as a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And I believe we've also had as a book.
I think there were a few, yeah.
I would just like to know what happened to Lando.
Yeah,
where's Lando, man? Where is Lando? He's not even mentioned.
No.
It's not like, because Han's getting all teary-eyed over where Luke's gone, but it doesn't even mention his old buddy Lando.
Man, like, he's got to be out there somewhere.
Exactly.
He was the pilot of the Falcon at the destruction of the second Death Star.
Yeah, it wasn't like he
got
didn't
to be get some sort of recognition.
Yeah, because he was there in that graphic novel, but I don't believe. I think it just kind of vanishes.
Oh right, he's just, I'm gonna go do my own thing.
I'm gonna go and do my own thing over there.
Where the cameras aren't.
And then I'd also like to see a Life as an Imperial film, which I was also writing as a fan fiction that would show. I mean, in my fan fiction, it was set during a different time. It was set just before the Battle of Scarif, and it was about one stormtrooper and one member of Imperial Society that fall in love. And he goes off to the Battle of Scarif and then never comes back. And then Resistance intelligence, or I suppose Rebel intelligence at that point, recognise this farmer as having a connection with the Empire and just bomb his farm.
Oh wow, jeez. And
it just showed, because it's something that I started to develop on as an idea after I'd seen Avatar. So not Avatar: The Last Airbender, but Avatar.
Oh, James Cameron's one.
Yeah. Because if you change that music around even slightly, you can make the humans look like the victims.
Well,
I mean, obviously the destruction of Home Tree and stuff like that, and having General McGeneral be all narcissistic and cruel, that doesn't help. But you could really change some of the Empire stuff around, and all they're doing is following orders at the end of the day, and most of them are just trying to live day-to-day life.
That's sort of always been a weird justification, just following orders. But eventually they wise up to what they're doing.
Yeah, but at the same time, does everyone in the Empire realise this is an evil path that we're taking?
Well, I mean...
Because what about in Rogue One? Even members of the rebellion at that point admit that Saul Guerrero's group of fanatics, they are terrorists.
Yeah.
So, I think it's even mentioned in one of the Tarkin books or in Rebels. Tarkin openly states that the rebellion are just terrorists.
Well, I think up until Rogue One, the the upper echelons of the rebellion, so like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and the other leaders you see around that table in that a few sort of conference scenes. They were still hoping for maybe a diplomatic
solution.
Yeah, because Leia's a member of the Imperial Senate, so maybe they were hoping that they can eventually, through diplomatic means and channels, get more power diverged back to the people and, you know, concentrate out from the Emperor. Then Cassian does say that he was, you know, they've been spies and killers and stuff, so maybe it's not all just diplomats, but until that point it's like, well, they are oppressing us, but we are still alive, so we'll carry on trying to fix things with diplomatic means. But then in Rogue One, when they learn of the existence and power of the Death Star, they're like, well, screw it, we're only going to die one way or the other, so we're going to either take this guy down or go to our graves. So maybe that's why like they weren't as terroristy,
no, fair.
compared to Saul Guerrero, who was like,
he would attack
extreme from day one.
He would attack shipments and stuff like that. He would openly attack Imperial citizens just because of their association with the Empire. But yeah, okay. So I will.
I feel like anyone in the Imperial Navy or Imperial Command Structure, or scientists on their payroll, like Galen and his team. Not so much Galen, because he was like a double agent, without actually connecting to the rebels at all. But he still put that flaw in there to weaken them. But anyone who's in the Imperial Command Structure, and stormtroopers, they must know what's going on. So they're, to some degree, culpable. Whereas ordinary citizens, like people of Jeddah, so like Chirrut Imwe, or you know, citizens, not so much on Tatooine because it's out of the way, so the Imperials didn't really care. They had a presence, but it wasn't like they protect that as much as Coruscant or other, you know, core worlds. But like Owen Lars, you know, the civilians, then they're not exactly helping end the Empire, but they're not aiding it.
No.
Not actively, at least.
Fair play. So I suppose with most, like you say, the Imperial Navy and the research division and things like that, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're
like, even if they don't know the whole of the like Emperor's plan for everything,
they know what they're doing, and
they
know
that they're like they might justify it to themselves by being like, oh no, we're keeping order. If you know, if an Imperial division of stormtroopers closes down like some sort of protest or something on a planet or on an outpost or whatever, or you know, disrupts shipping fleets or that sort of thing, they must know at least deep down that they're oppressing people.
Yeah. But with people who are in the front lines and people who work on, say, supply lines for the Empire, they may be given very little information, and then when they are attacked by the rebellion, they would be seen as the victims in that scenario.
Depends on how it's done, I guess.
It would have to be shot very cleverly.
Yeah.
So where are we at? So we've got Life as an Imperial, and then last of all, Luke's new Jedi Order, just because I'd like to see more on how that was actually established.
Like number of students, what Luke was doing in the lead up to it, that sort of thing.
Because it was all very back end. We saw the students.
Yeah, we saw it end. We never saw it start.
No, and how Luke was as a teacher, because obviously he was very cynical with Rey for the most part.
Yeah, but beforehand he might have been wide-eyed Tatooine farm boys.
Just happy about everything.
Yeah.
And then we're going to jump back to the beginning, so before episode 1, and I'd love to see, just because I am such a fanboy of his, I want to see a Revan film so badly. It doesn't even have to follow old canon. Just Revan as a character.
Just want to see it on.
I want to see it on the big screen. It doesn't matter what part of Revan's career, just so long as it is.
You see, I'd have to see that because I'm not too familiar with Revan.
I mean, there's still a fair amount that I need to learn, but from what I remember and still look into, he is neither. He's remembered as being neither Sith nor Jedi, and that he will forever stand alone because he established his own division.
Yeah.
And he there was even a point, forgive me if I'm wrong, but during the Old Republic where he battles against his own spirit, and one of them's dark and one of them's light.
Oh.
But his power was insanely strong. Like, his Force lightning could disintegrate people.
Oh wow.
He utilized so many different sabers during his career. During his Jedi career, he used a blue standard Jedi Knight. Then during his Sith career, it was red and purple, and then back to his when his mind was wiped and he was thrown back into the Jedi Order, he did wield a green one for some time. So Revan's done a bit of everything, and
different lightsabers.
Yeah, and he survived for a long old time, because when he was captured by the Emperor, the original Sith Emperor, he was kept in stasis for God knows how long, hundreds of years.
Oh, right.
And he came back at a completely different era, which was quite interesting to see and how he dealt with that. And then I'd love to see the Purge of the Jedi. I don't know if you've seen any of the Old Republic cinematics.
No.
Have you not?
No.
Oh man, we should watch those. So the Old Republic MMO game, they released loads of cinematic trailers, and one of them was, and it's in the book Deceived, which I'd really recommend checking out because it jumps. It does, again, the annoying episode 2 jump, but it's fun stuff happening as opposed to horrible romance and people walking through white corridors. It's the jump between the contract being signed on Alderaan between Sith representatives and Jedi representatives so that there'll be some peace, and then the Sith secretly infiltrating Coruscant and then destroying the Jedi Temple.
Oh,
and it's the same Jedi Temple that you see in the prequels. And it's just amazing to see Jedi versus Sith, and lots of. And then finally, I'd love to see the Sith as a film, because obviously the films are centered around the story of the good characters as opposed to the dark. Sometimes you get a nice balance, like with Episode 8, you got a nice balance between Kylo's story and then what was going on with Rey. But for the most part, especially the prequels, it is just the story, leading obviously up until Anakin's change. It is just a story of the Jedi and the pursuit of good. And you also don't really get an idea of the psychological change that people go through when they open themselves up to the dark side. All we know is that your eyes turn yellow if you're in that kind of dark side frenzy, and
wear a lot more black as well.
And you suffer from dark side degradation, like Sidious did.
Yeah.
And even Anakin did, and from some cases, his I think when he actually had the Vader suit on, he suffered physically as well from his dark side energy, and many others did as well. So it would be nice to see that kind of psychological change. And that's something you get to see in the Old Republic trailers, actually, with a character called Valen. But even then, you don't. It's a very short thing. You don't get to see what it actually does to a person, what the mind changes. With Episode 2, it was very quick. Like I killed them all. And I was like, wait, whoa, you were feeding her pears not 10 minutes before, and now, oh dear. So it is quite a jump, but it'll be nice to see some of that. Between episodes 1 and 2, I'd love to see a Dooku film.
Yeah, because he was Qui-Gon's master.
Yeah.
So.
And they went on a lot of
history there.
They went on a lot of missions together. I've even got an Obi-Wan comic that depicts some of their stuff together, which is I still need to get into reading. But I've even looked into who I would like to play young Dooku.
Yeah.
And you're going to hate this, and I kind of hate this, but it really, really kind of works. Who do you think looks like a young Christopher Lee? I think I've told you this before, but I don't know if you remember.
I don't think so, no.
No? Okay. I keep on forgetting his name, but I'll just say who who he's played. Ghost Rider.
Oh, Nick Cage.
He looks. I'll bring up pictures. He looks exactly like Christopher Lee did when he was young, like when he did Dracula. Yeah.
Mummy and stuff.
Oh hello. My computer's just died. But so yeah, I'd love to see some of the dynamic there with Qui-Gon and the teachings that he gave Qui-Gon as a Jedi, as opposed to his why did I do Google? As opposed to his stuff that you only see when he's a Sith. Tell you what, I'll look into that a bit later because I'm going to be typing and distracting myself. And then I'd love to see again, and it's a break off of the Sith idea, unraveling, which would be a psychological horror of the dark side. Obviously, again, Star Wars is core a children's film.
Yeah.
But with these new directors that we're getting, like the two creators of Game of Thrones, they'll be doing their own Star Wars films, and various other directors that we no doubt will get throughout these following years.
I mean, to be fair, for a group of kids' films, there are a lot of dismemberments.
There are, yeah. I mean, with the Anakin burning scene in Revenge of the Sith, that's
he
awful.
loses both his legs, his one good arm he has left, and then he catches on fire, and you see it all, and it's only rated 12 in the UK. What is going on with that?
They do like to do. It's almost like a Sword Art Online moment where it jumps from its kind of kid-friendly stuff to some really dark stuff.
Yeah, let's get really dark here all of a sudden.
And then Cypher-Dyas, I would like to see more on Jedi Master Cypher-Dyas and what his play was within the creation of the Clone Army.
Yeah.
And he was also sided with Dooku for a time, I think. During,
really?
I think he may have done. I think he joined because I know Quinlan Vos sided with Dooku when he first turned to the dark side.
Yeah.
And then I want to say Cypher-Dyas was there, but I'm not entirely sure. But I've put all the years next to it, and I predicted that we wouldn't see a Cypher-Dyas film until 2050. So we're already that far in.
I mean, like, I'd be very old by the time that comes out. And new audiences, unless they've seen, like, episode 2, they're not going to have any clue.
No. And then from episode 2 to episode 3, I'd love to see more stuff on Grievous.
Yeah.
Because we saw a little bit of it in the Clone Wars when you go to his kind of his lair, and you see that he's got statues of him when he was still more humanoid, pre-cyborg. But they don't then tell the story of that. It's just in tribute to that story. But it is quite as Legends goes, it was quite a cool story. Because his name alone is based off of his grieving for the loss of his wife and his people.
Yeah.
So it would be cool to see.
Or like grievous bodily harm.
Yeah, which he did suffer both.
Well, yeah.
So it'd be cool to see a less menacing and robotic. He was still really.
I liked him.
Yeah, I loved Grievous. I thought it was really, really cool. Even in the Clone Wars, where he's kidded up a bit, he's still pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the fight in the 2D. What was it, 2003?
I think so.
Clone Wars, between him and 5 Jedi.
I think I've seen like screenshots of it, but not actually seen the fight in its entirety.
It's insane. Like he grabs one Jedi just with his foot and just slams him into the ground, and just holding. He even is holding a saber with his foot, and still duels that way.
Yeah, I mean he has the big old claws, doesn't he?
Yeah,
So.
And he is an incredible fighter, because all of that, I believe, takes place before his cough develops, which in that is depicted when he kidnaps the Chancellor from Coruscant. Just before he leaves, Mace Windu uses the Force to crush his ribcage in, which damages some of his still biological parts. Yeah. That's why no matter how much fixing they give him, he's
because it's biological rather than. Well, they could just rub some Bacta on it, I guess.
Imagine putting him in a Bacta. That'd be terrifying.
Well, would he have to come out of his cyborg suit? Because
there's not much possible? of there's not much of him left.
No.
That's just so you just stick 5 bottles
and like some organs in a tub of goo.
But yeah, no, he was an incredible fighter and still was into Revenge of the Sith, just less so. And then I'd like to see more stuff on Saul Guerrero, because Saul Guerrero, I don't know whether you knew where Saul Guerrero's origins came from.
I've heard that he's in Rebels, but I've not seen Rebels.
He's actually as far back as the Clone Wars.
Oh, really?
And he fights with Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Oh.
And during that, he takes quite a massive loss, which then changes his perception. He's still quite cynical in that, but he's not as cynical.
Yeah.
And you can see his unraveling in Rebels when he doesn't trust anyone. I mean, even when Jyn Erso comes in, and this is like a friend that he's had all the way up until she's 17.
Well, yeah, she like raised him. No,
he raised
her.
Yeah,
sorry.
And I'm sure that she did some good for him as well. As soon as he sees her, he makes all he's kind of like his anxiety sets in and his paranoia, and he really starts to unravel and make those kind of irrational connections. But yeah, I'd like to see more on Saul Guerrero, and it would be set between episodes 2 and 3. So seeing how he's dealt with the stuff that happens in the Clone Wars and the further resistance effort that he does up to the lead up of the Jedi Purge and the establishment of the Empire. And then I'd love to see some stuff on the Night Sisters. Now, I don't know if you know much about the Night Sisters.
Very little. I know that they're dark side Force users.
Well, you say that, but I think they do use the Force, but they have it's like a third break-off where they use magic as opposed to the Force itself.
Oh, right.
And that's where Ventress came from. She was a Night Sister. And that's also where Maul came from.
Yeah, I was going to say
they're from the
part
same
of Maul's species.
They're from the same planet, planet Dathomir. But Dathomir is a planet that's separated into two factions. So you've got the male colonies, which are just basically the brute strength, and then the ones that are used to reproduce. And then you've got the higher ups, which are the Night Sisters, and they run everything. That they do keep themselves to themselves. It's almost like there are two monk or like nun clans that live on. They don't tend to mingle all that much. Then breaking off from that, no, that'll be it. And that would take us all the way up to 2056. That's
over there with my walking stick.
Oh, the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
I remember when
back in my day.
When we only had the first 20 films. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know what your thoughts are on my predictions or my ideas, or if there is anything that you'd like to see. I know there's a lot of information that I just kind of dumped.
I mean, obviously the films at the minute are centred around like this one. What is it from? Episode 1 to episode 8, it's about
the Skywalker lineage.
Yeah, it's like 60 years worth of stories, is it? Episode 1 is 30 years before. Episode 7's 30 years after. So yeah, it's about 60, 65 years, give or take, of stuff.
So
this is like, there's so much stuff in that, but there must be a history. Maybe not necessarily a future, but there's definitely a history of the stuff there.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe see some films set like 100 years before episode 1 or something. Or like Mace Windu when he was a Padawan.
I don't know why, but I really pictured you saying when he was a toddler. I was like, why? The Mace Windu toddler. Fair? No. That's better. I prefer that. But yeah, no, I'd like to see because Mace, and I think we said this in the last episode that Mace was very cold in his.
Yeah. So whether he's been like that since he was a young man, and he's just always had that sort of sterile demeanour,
or whether there was something that changed him, which is also something that I speculated on with Han Solo, because. I was looking into original canon with some of the videos that I sent you with the Han Solo trailer review. I don't know if you saw, I think it was the second one, I mentioned a droid that he used to travel around with.
Yeah.
And then the droid that was encased inside his chest. Well, from what I saw from that, he was fairly friendly with those droids. But then throughout the films that we've seen, he's always been very cold, especially with BB-8.
Yeah, he's just like, out of the way, ball.
And I've always thought maybe there was... Because Han Solo is very... detached from everything, which then explains why he's so difficult to accept anything new like the Force, and that these people could be anything less than a problem in his life. I
mean, not to distract, but
no.
something I quickly want to bring out with that Han and the Force is the way he goes from completely disbelieving it
Just
in episode 4 to it was all real in episode 7. I think that's just a nice bit of character development because obviously he's seen it all happen.
He's finally
so he knows
less
that it's real.
He's less cold and less narrow-minded. But my idea with the droid was that there has to have been something that caused him to... Maybe he had a connection to this droid.
To a droid.
And something happened, and he just thought never again.
Yeah.
That was also something that I wanted to bring out. I don't know whether you knew in original canon, Han Solo had a kind of sort of wife.
I remember reading a novel, again, way back when, borrowed from a library, where he met a woman who wasn't Leia, like pre A New Hope, and became involved with her, but I can't remember how that panned out.
No, because I think they got married for a job to like have a kind of disguise, but then in one of the comics she turns up then after Leia and Han have got together and introduces herself as Han's wife, and then that causes some conflict there. But my idea was that we've got 2 new female protagonists in the Han Solo film that we've seen, at least from the trailer.
Yes, there's the one played by Tandy Newton and the one played by what's her name from Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, the one who plays Khaleesi.
Yeah. What's her name? It's going to bug me now. I should know that.
To be fair, you're doing better with actors and actresses' names than I am. I always suffer with that.
If I blurt it out, like 10 minutes down the line, halfway through the recording, you know what I've been thinking about.
That's fine. But if something happened to one of them, and if something happened to one of them in direct, in direct response to...
Because of a droid?
Well, no, not because of the droid, because of Vader. Because Vader's said to be in this Han Solo film at some point. I don't know if that's official or not.
I kind of hope he isn't.
No, I kind of hope he isn't too.
Because when they meet Han in episode 4, he's like completely detached from it all, like you said. So it'd be weird, I think, if he does try and join up, and he says he got kicked out of the Imperial flight school.
For having a mind of his own.
Yeah. So I feel like it'd be weird if he keeps getting involved with the Empire, and then when you find him, he's not. So if he's like, no, I'm done with the Empire now, I want to do my own thing, until he gets drawn back in with Luke and Obi-Wan and Leia and everything in A New Hope. I feel like that would make more sense as a story progression than him like meeting Darth Vader.
But I'm not saying that he has to have a conversation with Vader. It's more that they're going out doing this job, and this is obviously against the Empire's interests, and they run into a battalion of troops or whatever, and Vader's with them, and Vader kills one of these female characters.
Could be. That
would then have more of a justification for Han's reaction when he sees him in Cloud City and just starts blasting away. Yeah. It could be like you're the reason why I am the way I am.
Could be. Then again, going by original characterization, as in original theatrical cut, hand shot first. So there is a precedent for him for just blasting away.
No, fair play. He would just because he had seen Vader very quickly aboard the first Death Star when Luke's firing at those those
so
stormtroopers.
If between A New Hope and Empire, then if Luke explains who the old guy was, or even if Han in his own way felt a connection to Obi-Wan, and like, I was frustrated by him, but I didn't want to see him die.
No.
But if he sees Obi-Wan die, then he knows Vader's not an okay dude.
No, and no doubt there's a lot of Imperial propaganda flying around as well, no doubt with images of Vader.
Yeah, so Vader's going to be like a known figurehead.
Yeah, as where the Emperor wasn't so much, he was more hidden away, and he was orchestrating all of it, but he wasn't the face that everyone thought of, and even we don't think of. I mean, when you think
Empire,
you think Vader. You don't think the Emperor so much.
I mean, even in even in A New Hope, when you think Vader, you think Empire. Even though the way it plays out, it's sort of like Tarkin's in charge, because Vader isn't like Grima Wormtongue or something, and like completely subservient to him, like Grima was to Saruman. But it's still like he respected Tarkin a lot more than Vader respected any other Imperial officer.
Yeah, so it would make sense that Han perhaps would know Vader even before the whole stuff with Luke and.
So it's like, if I ever meet that guy, I want to blast him. And then when he meets him, he blasts him.
So we're going to round up this episode with a few of the questions that we didn't see in the Star Wars questionnaire, but I thought would be nice just to gain more of an idea of what kind of Star Wars fans we are, and what we take away from the Star Wars universe, and if we lived in that universe, what would we do? What kind of people would we be? And where would we spend most of our time? But first of all, I wanted to jump into some news that we've received quite recently, that John Williams is no longer going to be composing music after Episode 9.
Yeah.
And who would you like to see composing music for these next Star Wars films? And there's two questions for that. There's the one that will be taking John Williams' place, possibly the one that will be doing all of the core films, and then because we've always had different composers for the Star Wars stories, who would you like to see, perhaps, let's say, for the Game of Thrones guys, Star Wars films?
Well, I mean, John Williams is pushing 90, so I can't. He might be over 90 actually. I'm not sure. But he's in that ballpark, so I can't really fault him for retiring.
I'm absolutely thrilled.
I'm just glad he's managed to get this far.
And the stuff that he's produced for us has made Star Wars what we know today.
Yeah, like everyone knows the Star Wars theme. Everyone knows the Imperial March. Even outside of Star Wars, everyone knows Harry Potter and Indiana Jones. Like, when it comes to composing film scores, man's a genius.
Yeah.
But as for like a replacement, I feel like Hans Zimmer, who did the music for
he did Pirates, didn't he?
I think he did Pirates. He definitely did Batman.
Yeah, he did Batman.
The Nolan trilogy. Though I do like the music that he did for that, and Pirates is maybe closer to Star Wars. I feel like it's not operatic enough. I don't know if that's just his style, or like if that's like if he had free reign on the music, would he make it more operatic, or did he keep to what he wanted to do and came up with a sort of not necessarily subdued themes, but like they're a lot more repetitive, especially the main theme for Batman Begins. It's very sort of so I feel like that wouldn't be a massive fit for Star Wars.
No, because there's a lot of variation in the music that we get in Star Wars, depending on the scene that we have.
A lot of it uses the I don't know, like technical terms for arranging music, but the like notes, you do hear a lot of the main theme, even like little bursts of it, in a lot of other tracks.
But at the same time, they all have their own.
It's not just a sample of it. It's like you say, it's their own thing, but you can tell that they're related in some way. Who did the music for Rogue One? Was that Marco Giacchino?
Give me a minute.
Yeah,
because he did a lovely job. With Rogue One.
I really like the music in that. Especially when the just after Scarif has been hit, and there's really the in the music there's sort of you know what's coming, and you feel the tragedy of that in the music, because it has sort of a quality to it that makes it feel like there's an impending doom coming, which there is in the form of the obliterating white laser.
Yeah, that's the name. I can't read that.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's pronounced. I think he did the music for the Star Trek reboot films as well.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, they're amazing.
Yeah,
their
yeah.
soundtrack.
They have a lot of like the main theme that they used for the first one. It was sort of redone for Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond as well. Not to talk too much about Star Trek on the Star Wars podcast, but
no, fair enough.
but I feel like it has that similar sort of quality where you can tell that the pieces of music are related, but it doesn't sound exactly the same. You can tell it's a variation on a theme sort of thing, rather than
just a rehash.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. But I personally, I mean, I'd love to see Hans Zimmer do stuff for that darker Star Wars that I spoke
Possibly,
of.
yeah.
Because
if
he has a wide range of talent.
yeah.
Like you say, some of the stuff that he's done for the Batman films and for Pirates even. Was it Hans Zimmer or was it? No, you said John Williams did Harry Potter, didn't he?
Pretty sure he did.
Yeah. So I know I've got a lot of other Hans Zimmer music, but I can't place.
I think he did Gladiator.
Yes, he
I think
did.
He did that one.
And Gladiator has such a good soundtrack.
I think that was like early in his career.
Yeah. So it'll be good to see him do that. But for the main trilogy, I just don't know who could carry on that torch.
I mean, I don't know. Outside of the names we've already mentioned, the only other name I can really think of for musical scores is Danny Elfman, who did the Michael Keaton Batman, the Tim Burton version, way back when. But that's like a pretty definitive Batman piece of music.
Yeah.
So if you can do that and like apply it to Star Wars, you might that's something different but similar and equally iconic.
There's a good chance that we'll just get exactly the same thing as we're getting with most of these actors. It's just going to be someone new that we've never heard of.
Yeah.
This is where they start their career.
Like, imagine getting that sort of big break.
That'd be incredible.
Going from like scoring small, $15 million films. I'd say small, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but budgets for films even now are just insane.
And then go to Star Wars, it'd be
quite a jump.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And so if we dive into those questions that are more into the universe as opposed to the film making itself, what would be your favourite planet, but just to look at?
Just to look at.
So it's cool factor.
Do you like the sinkholes of Utapau? Not much to look at on the surface, obviously, but then
the cities and
the cities and the architecture and everything.
The architecture is lovely because you've got a combination of modern stuff and then you've got kind of like these Jurassic skeletons.
A lot of, I was going to say it's a lot of like sort of bone-like structures for like landing pads and even just the details on the buildings. What you see, it's very, very skeletal.
It's,
but like you say, mixed with more modern influences.
It kind of resonates with me the Coruscant Undercity, where you've got that one big kind of exhaust port that drops down into the underlevels. You get the same kind of feel with the Utapau cities that are all built into the giant hole. And then at the not necessarily the opposite end of the spectrum, but in terms of practicality of living, where would you like to live within the Star Wars universe? Do your day-to-day life, not necessarily as a soldier, just living, just existing.
I feel like Naboo is going to be a pretty good choice for that.
Naboo's nice,
because it's very peaceful, it's very idyllic.
Climate's
cities,
about the same.
Climate is going to be like pretty sweet. It looked like fairly sunny most of the time, and like the architecture is very nice. If you want to get out of the city, there's plenty of fields, plenty of plains.
Plenty of unrendered planes, like we saw in episode 1. Just the colour green.
I feel like Coruscant, it sort of depends.
Yeah, it depends where you live.
Yeah.
If you're in the kind of middle classes, then you can get the best of both worlds, or the best of one world and the worst of the other.
Yeah. Whereas if you're stuck in the Undercity,
it's
you ever seen Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be worse than that.
Yeah. So fair enough. Naboo for you. I'd say Scarif.
Yeah.
Just because it was described in the Star Wars Battlefront book as a holiday resort.
I could see that.
And just having like even a hut set up there, that'd be so nice. Just walking out on
Just
like an island.
Yeah.
It'd be beautiful. Because obviously it was just from the Empire's interference there that Scarif looked the way that it did with the giant towers and the shield gate. Obviously it didn't look that way before the Empire arrived.
No.
So it would.
So in the like Republic era, it would probably be quite nice.
Probably quite nice. And what is your favourite Star Wars location? So not necessarily planet, but location. So this doesn't need to be somewhere to live. This is just like where
Just
did
somewhere
you
that's
like?
cool.
Like all my gosh, this all the stuff that's happening here is really cool, and just the location helps it along.
There's in The Force Awakens. I don't know if it necessarily counts as a location because technically it's a ship, but flying through the interior of the Star Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
Scenes where Rey's like scavenging inside it. I thought that's a neat idea and a cool sort of space.
Yeah.
Other than that, Cloud City's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it's got this very sort of iPod look of the like upper city,
White and silver.
yeah. But then the industrial designs
Areas.
of like the carbonite freezing chamber,
They're all
and
quite different.
Yeah, it's obviously a very different look. It's like very yin and yang, but the designs in there are very cool. All the little like the details and the sets and everything.
Yeah.
They were quite cool. So sort of a toss up between those two probably.
I think mine would have to be Mustafar.
Yeah.
Just because you've got the combination of seeing the miners do what they do on Mustafar, then the actual Mustafar station where most of the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin goes down, and then you've even got the Darth Vader's castle, and then also the catacombs where he goes to create his first saber.
I've not seen that.
That's in one of the new Marvel comics.
Oh right.
And because
I'll have to check that out.
they've changed the way that red crystals are made, whereas before that they were just made by the Sith straight from the get-go from scratch. Now you bleed a Jedi crystal and then you corrupt it with dark side energy, and that makes a Sith crystal. And obviously they've changed all the stuff now with Kyber crystal canon, whereas it used to be that you could just go to Ilum or wherever or even Jeddah, and you could harvest a crystal. It could be whatever color, and then that would be the one that you would use, and that would then depict what path you took. It's now saying that the Force chooses for you.
Right.
So you could go into, say, if you and I went into Ilum, and you saw a Kyber crystal, I wouldn't be able to see that because that Kyber crystal is meant for you.
Right.
So for me, it would just be like glass or ice. It wouldn't.
Or
just
whatever,
nothing.
Yeah.
But for you, you'd be able to see it. And
Right.
it would call out. It would call out to you until you harvested it, and then that would be your Kyber crystal. I don't know whether I necessarily like that, but that's for another day. So I think that's pretty much all of the questions I've got down there for now. So let's wrap up. We're almost an hour in. It's all good.
Trim down in the edit.
It's all good. So thank you very much for joining me once again. It's been a pleasure. So whether you are Jedi or Sith, Resistance or First Order, Republic or CIS, I don't know if I've missed any out. Rebels and Empire, Geonosian or Mandalorian. I hope you all have a very good day, afternoon or evening or morning or whatever you guys are doing, wherever it is and whatever time. May the Force be with you and have a great day.